Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. I see myself moving and shaking, so I'm going to take it that I am up. Sorry to take a little bit of time to set this up. I was trying to pull all the videos and it was taking a little bit. Let me make sure my levels are up. Ah, bastard. My levels dropped on me. Make sure my playback is correct. Good, that's correct. Guys, hopefully you guys can join me on this one. Thank you for joining me again at some point when the people come and whoever's watching the video. First, I want to thank all the people who watch the channel, watch the show, who tune in, whether you can get it live or whether you can get it afterwards. I appreciate you guys for paying attention, or at the very least watching the content. For my new subscribers, my format tends to be, I guess if you haven't necessarily followed it yet, I tend to give my spiel in the beginning, my take on a particular subject, a particular event, and then I bring in the audience to have a conversation after my spiel. Depending on the length of the commentary, or depending on the commentary itself, I would open it up to patrons, people who essentially assist with the content through Patreon. They can call into the show. Everybody else will still pay attention to the comments on the side. So even if you're not necessarily donating through Patreon, even if you share, like, and all that other good stuff, you are immensely appreciated. And I still read comments on the side, so I still engage with the audience. And announcements while I'm thinking about it before I get into the main topic. So I've spoken to a few people. I've been trying to keep a steady stream of people coming onto the channel so you guys can get different views, different perspectives. Sometimes the perspectives are similar with minor deviations, but at the very least you get to see how other people see the world. Let's say it that way. I've spoke to Caitlin Johnston. So she's supposed to be coming on to the show. She's going to be on for like a 30-minute interview coming up, I believe, next week, more likely than not. I'm nailing down the date and time for. I've spoken to Cynthia McKinney. That's somebody people asked for prior, and I remember when she was in Congress. So I am immensely looking forward to that conversation. Caitlin Johnson also, so don't misunderstand me. But you know, I always run into this thing of what's true. Is it that these guys are oblivious, or is it that these guys don't care? And so to have somebody who was in Congress and who was actually there interacting with the other members of Congress and interacting with the media and all this other stuff. Not to mention, she's been rather outspoken and rather strong in her commentaries. And how can I say this? She's been rather strong and outspoken in her commentaries. So that was a fine in order for her to say yes, she'd come on at some point. So still working out the details on when, but I think it was nice that she agreed. Steve Bassett is, as far as I know, is still a yes. I don't think he's turning me down. And so I have a few people coming up that should be interesting. There should be interesting commentary and interesting guests. So those should be fascinating. There's another gentleman, Joseph Burks. He's a UFO investigator, and that is going to be an amazing interview if I can nail him down on the schedule where he can come on. So some of the interviews that are coming up are going to be fucking fascinating. So definitely stay tuned and keep your ear up. So this particular story. I wish, and perhaps, you know, in another life, perhaps if I grew up in a different way, I wish I was a better person than this. And what I mean by this is, I wish I was a better person in a way that I wouldn't necessarily feel this thing of needing to say, I told you so. I don't like being that guy. I don't like having this thing that's just deep in you and it just kind of wells up and like, told you so. I told you so. I told you so. I'm that guy. I'll be that guy. I'll be the guy that screams out in the crowd, I told you that this was going to take place if you did what you did. Now, in this case, of course, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders. And I made this point that you are allowing your base and you yourself to be attacked in this way. You're allowing yourself to be attacked. the perspective that Sanders has taken in dealing with this issue, with this Russia nonsense, these Twitter and Facebook ads, has allowed a perch from which he can be attacked, and his supporters are going to be attacked, and his supporters are going to be undermined. That was my point. Now, some people disagree with my take on this, but I held my shape and I said Bernie Sanders is going to be attacked on this. They're going to attack the left. They're going to use this as a reason to attack the left. They're going to use this to attack lefty journalism, and they're going to use this to attack him, while at the exact same time propping up this idea of status quo. Dropping and removing any idea of context, Hillary Clinton didn't lose because she was a failed candidate. She lost because of Russia and Bernie Sanders and Trump. I told you so. I told you so. Do you remember this? Do you remember this? I remember this guy.
And I am proud that the gentleman who is head of Goldman Sachs, now he didn't give me $225,000 for speaking fees. He said I was dangerous, and he is right. I am dangerous for Wall Street.
All I can say,
we're going to move on.
I remember when he said that. I was watching TV. I was watching the Young Turks when they were watching this. And I remember almost jumping to my feet. Yes! Yes! That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear people cower in the corner. I don't want to see weakness. I want to see strength on this. Particularly if your base, the people who are giving you cash in your donor base, want you to be this way. Meaning you're taking these forms and these dispositions because you can take these forms and dispositions because your base wants you to take these forms and dispositions. The people who are putting money in your pocket and stuffing money down your G-string was us. And because it was us, you had a different foundation from which to perch yourself. Meaning there's certain things that Tom Perez, Hillary Clinton, the rest of the other random Democrats couldn't say. You were not beholden to those people. You were beholden to us. That was an amazing fucking thing. And I was proud to put my vote for that guy. And I was proud to stump for that particular guy. Fast forward. We're out of the campaign season. We're out of the primaries. And right now, the guy who, in that moment, said he was dangerous. Damn right I'm dangerous. Damn right I'm dangerous. That guy who said he was dangerous got hit with this. At least this is the order of operations that I saw it. Sanders silent on claim that Russia backed him in 2016. What? What do you mean Russia backed him in 2016? You're talking about the Facebook and Twitter ads? Is that what you're talking about? So just so we can define our terms. Initially, they started off with the thing saying Hillary Clinton didn't lose because she was a horrible failed candidate. She lost because of Donald Trump colluding with Russia, whatever colluding means, in order to hack the DNC to release factually true information showing that Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, was a slush fund, and that the Democratic Party cheated Bernie Sanders. That was the original story. Now, they've jumped the shark from that story, moved far, far away from that particular story, and have just gone with Russia attacked us. This is Pearl Harbor. This is the other 9/11 2.0 part deux. This is what they're going with now. So now Hillary Clinton did lose because she was a horrible candidate. Hillary Clinton lost because of Russia. Now, to put it in context, they're talking about Facebook and Twitter ads, social media. This is the ridiculousness that we've ended up with. And with this social media, half of these appeared after the election. Now, no one in their right mind, no honest, decent person, no even half honest, decent person, no marginally decent person will say that these things had any impact on the election. The impact on the election was 0 to 0. There was no impact. You had a bunch of Facebook and Twitter ads. They were talking about social media ads. There was zero to no impact. Nobody in their right mind would say there was an impact on the election. Everybody understands that the United States takes this particular cadence in other countries. Everyone understands that the United States has destroyed other countries in recent memory. Everyone understands that right now, in this very moment, we are in other countries illegally, bombing and destroying the governmental apparatus of those countries. Destroyed Iraq. We destroyed Libya. We tried to undermine Syria by paying terrorists in order to undermine that particular government. I'm trying to make the point to you that in one situation after the next, we have either destroyed or manipulated the governments of numerous nations. So I'm stuck with the dilemma. A, this had little to no impact. B, they have not, regardless of what they tell you, connected this to Vladimir Putin at all. This is more essentially Facebook and Twitter ads. It's possible that it was Putin, but I'm saying they haven't made that connection. They've jumped the shark on that. C, the United States takes the same behavior abroad. D, the behavior of the United States abroad is even worse, since it's not just Facebook and Twitter ads that don't necessarily have an impact on the outcome of the election. We actually have destroyed nations. Now, faced with this, faced with a bunch of people who are looking for any excuse to explain why Hillary Clinton failed miserably to a reality shows, looking for any excuse to come up with a reason, some paradigm to explain how the person who's supposed to be the most qualified candidate on the planet lost to reality shows. And you've just given them one. Facebook and social media. The guy who said he was dangerous. The guy who terrified Wall Street. The guy who was on that debate stage ready to punch a banker in the ear. After this, Sanders sallied on claims that Russia backed him in 2016. And now, outside of the campaign season, and wanting to be able to run in the Democratic primary coming up in 2020, and full well understanding that he needs the votes of some people who are not wrapped all that tight. That dangerous man has been now changed into this.
Most Americans know is that at the end of my campaign, when it appeared that Clinton was going to win, and certainly after she won the nomination, what the Russians were doing is flocking to Bernie Sanders' Facebook sites, and they were saying to Bernie Sanders supporters, as they were, by the way, to Black Lives Matter supporters, people who are fighting for social justice, as they were saying to the Muslim community, if you voted for Sanders, you have to understand Hillary Clinton is crazy, she's a murderer, she is terrible, all kinds of horrible, horrible things about Hillary Clinton. And it turns out that one of our social media guys in San Diego actually went to the Clinton campaign in September and said something weird is going on. Bernie's not in the campaign. Hundreds of these people are now coming onto his Facebook site. So I think we already knew that. It was an effort to undermine American democracy and to really say horrible things about Secretary Clinton.
Do you have an idea of how to prevent this going forward? I mean, this was a sophisticated, so they basically used the divide of the Democratic Party between you and Secretary Clinton at the time to polarize things even more.
Right. Look, first of all, the main point to be understood is that what everybody understands, except Donald Trump, is that this was not just the 2016 campaign. They intend to do this in 2018. And I think one of the weirdest things in modern American history is you have every intelligence agency, you have the Mueller report, you have Trump's own administration saying the Republicans want to sabotage the 2018 campaign. Everybody knows this except the President of the United States.
Just to be clear on this. Because I feel, every time I watch this video, I feel I need to clarify, well, what's taking place and what these guys are saying. One, I will give them the benefit of the doubt and say it was Russia. We don't know that to be true, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt just for the sake of argument. Russian hackers, not even hackers, people doing Facebook ads and Twitter ads, half of which took place after the election, were placed in during the election frame. So let's say that's A. B, no effect. No effect on the outcome of the election. C, the United States does far worse around the world. Yes, we attack other nations from a cybersecurity standpoint, but we also actually attack other nations from a militaristic standpoint. We've destroyed governments. D, the man who's standing here, looking into the camera, making this argument, saying that this was an undermining of democracy, and he attacked our democracy, and there needs to be severe consequences. This guy, the guy who was dangerous in the other one, but now looks like he's in a hostage video. That guy was actually cheated. That guy was actually cheated. Meaning the guy who's talking about Russia cheating because of Facebook and Twitter ads is out here saying that Russia cheated him, when everyone knows, the majority of the people know, particularly his own supporters, the people who gave him money, who reached in their pocket and put money into his pocket, including the majority of the American population, understands that he himself was cheated. The guy who's out here saying that Hillary Clinton was being cheated by the Russians, was he himself cheated by Hillary Clinton? Between the undermining of democracy, what do you think is more significant to the undermining of democracy? Do you believe that one of the parties giving over the party apparatus to his opponent in a way that weren't supposed to be completely unethical and completely cheating through the entire way through the process? Do you think that the Democratic Party cheating Bernie Sanders in the way that they cheated Bernie Sanders was more significant, or a bunch of Facebook and Twitter ads? I just want to give the gravity of what they're talking about, because what they're saying completely lacks any context at all. Let's keep going. This is too insane.
Yeah. And I think people are asking, what is going on with this president? What we have got to do, and I think Senator Langford touched on some of the issues, front end. Yeah. Front end. What we have got to say to the Russians, you are doing something to undermine American democracy. You are not going to get away with it. This is a major assault. If you do that, there will be severe, severe consequences.
The Facebook and Twitter ads are a major assault. Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party shafting and cheating his supporters, not so much. That doesn't even come up. Do you understand why people are annoyed at this? Bernie Sanders, in this moment, allowed a perch from which to hit him, his supporters, whether it be Black Lives Matter, whether it be Muslims, or whether it just be him himself. Now, the reason why I say this is, you've given legitimacy something that doesn't have legitimacy associated with it. There's no association with the election, meaning it had no impact on the election. But you, looking in Chuck Todd, Mr. Oblivious, giving any level of legitimacy to this at all, bringing up the election in the context of the Russians, you've given the story legitimacy and credibility. Now, you understand that when people talk about this, people who don't like you, media outlets who don't like you, Hillary Clinton supporters who don't like you, when they talk about this, what they're going to leave out about this is, A, that there was no impact on the election, B, that this was supposedly after the election was over with. I mean, I know you put that caveat in, but they're not going to add that caveat. They're not going to add any of that context. What you're going to hear is, in the same way you heard Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia collusion, this thing where they're not specific about what they're talking about, leaving a certain amount of ambiguity into the process, so when people are listening to it, they only get a flavor of what's taking place. What they're going to end up with is Bernie Sanders and Russia. Bernie Sanders was helped by Russia. It wasn't that Hillary Clinton was massively unpopular. It wasn't that status quo failed. It wasn't that, it wasn't any of that stuff. Ultimately, the support that Bernie Sanders had was purely based on this idea of being ginned up by Russia. Now, no, that's not true. Yes, that massively lacks context, but I guarantee you that that is going to be the argument and the conversation that's going to take place as we move further away from this point. You understand that the original investigation with Trump and Russia was supposedly Trump and Russia colluding. They've completely moved away from that, and now they're just with Bernie Sanders and Russia. Bernie Sanders is helped by Russia. To show you a different approach in dealing with this, Because, you know, you may say, well, what is Bernie Sanders supposed to do? I mean, certainly Bernie Sanders doesn't have a choice here. Well, Bernie Sanders does have a choice. Here's another interpretation of what a person is going to do when they're confronted with ridiculousness in this way.
Presidential candidate Jill Stein is going to talk with me next about the special counsel indictment that says the Russians tried to help her campaign. She is referenced specifically in that indictment. I'm going to ask her about it next. Bernie Sanders there in an interview with my colleague Chuck Todd this morning, corroborating the special counsel's findings on Russia's interference in the U.S. election. Well, joining me now, Jill Stein, 2016.
By the way, if you notice, she said corroborated Chuck Todd's corroborated Chuck Todd's findings. Now, Bernie Sanders, how is Bernie Sanders corroborating anything? Ultimately, Bernie Sanders is just saying the investigation. He gave it legitimacy. He gave it legitimacy. And that is the last thing you want to do. Let's let it keep going. My point is, you shouldn't give it legitimacy if there's no legitimacy associated with it. Don't throw your supporters under the bus. Don't allow a perch from which to attack you. And mind you, from that perch that you gave Chuck Todd, they launched to try to attack Jill Stein immediately after it. Let's hear Jill Stein, though. And let's see how Jill Stein responds to this.
Presidential candidate for the Green Party, and it's nice to see you again, have you back on the broadcast. So
great to see you, Alex.
Dr. Stein, we have a special counsel Mueller's indictment which says that Russians used social media to boost your campaign as well as Senator Sanders' campaign in an effort to damage Hillary Clinton and then help Donald Trump. So your reaction to Senator Sanders there? Look, he's saying that his campaign hadn't at least an idea there was some level of interference. Were you ever alerted to any of these efforts by Russia to boost your campaign?
So let me just back up for a minute to point out that what was cited in the Mueller indictment was one Facebook posting, okay, one Facebook posting, and that's it. That is being claimed as evidence of our campaign benefiting from a boost from Russia. Remember, one Facebook post, and in other evidence cited outside of Mueller's indictment, we were found to have received one or possibly two Facebook ads posted by the so-called Internet Research Agency. So remember here, on Facebook, there are trillions of pieces of information posted. So this doesn't pass the laugh test, actually,
well, but
as
it doesn't,
evidence
but
of our campaign benefiting.
So were you aware, though, of these incidents you're talking about, of the Facebook post and of the agency's advertisement? Had you been aware of those?
She's asking Jill Stein, hey, were you aware of the one Facebook post that was put out, that one Facebook post that didn't have any effect on the election at all? Were you aware of that one Facebook post? This is too stupid. Jill Stein is right. This doesn't pass a laugh test. This is a dramatically different way of dealing with ridiculousness. Let's keep going.
It's pretty hard to pick up one ad or one Facebook post among trillions.
No, understandably so. So you were not aware? You were not aware?
No, we were not aware. But let me say, we were aware of other kinds of interference. For example, we know that $6 billion in free airtime was given to Donald Trump by the big networks. $6 billion. This was twice as much as Hillary Clinton, about 4 times as much as Bernie Sanders, way more than the independent candidates. Is that not interference?
No, listen, I do understand, but it's not Russian interference, and I will say, I'm proud to say that we actually had you on our broadcast several times. I had you on in person when we were there covering the Democratic National Convention. I understand, but that unfortunately isn't going to be the topic of this particular interview.
What the CEO of CBS said was that for Donald Trump, he was damn good. That was the word he was damn good for the networks, even though he was not good for America. What the point I'm making here, Alex, is that we don't want to miss the forest here through the tree. Yes, there was Russian interference, but remember, there was very compelling interference going on by way of media, by way of the DNC. Right. Did the DNC not rig the primary?
Well, look, I understand all of that. I do completely take your point, but it's not the point that we're going to have here. In terms of the indictment with Robert Mueller, that indictment came out and your name was mentioned in there. I do want to play a soundbite that you may have heard earlier. It was from our blast block. It's John Podesta, of course, from the Clinton campaign, and here's what he said today. Take a listen to this.
they were pushing votes, just to give one example, to Jill Stein. Her vote in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin was greater than the gap between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in those states. So you can't prove that it did affect the outcome, but it certainly seems likely that it had some impact.
I gotta be honest, this is one of the stupidest comments that I hear a lot of. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. Why doesn't he just include Republican votes? Just include Republican votes. Fuck it. It's libertarian votes. Hey, how many libertarian voters were going to go? Might as well add those in the Hillary Clinton. Also, I'm pretty sure there was some socialists and communists out there. Add those in too. I'm making the point that Hillary Clinton doesn't own anybody's vote. That if those people were going to vote green, they might not have voted at all. In fact, I think over half wouldn't have voted at all when they actually polled those people to say, if Jill Stein wasn't on the ballot, would you vote? Majority said no, we would not. Another portion will go to Trump. She still would lose. Nobody owns your vote. Hillary Clinton does not own your vote in any way. You vote for the person who you want to vote for. You vote for the person who you believe represents your interests. Those people did not believe Hillary Clinton represented their interests. It is fucking insane to get on television and say, hey, that block of voters who voted for the candidate that wasn't my candidate, we should get those votes. We should get those votes. We magically should just get those votes. That is an insane perspective to take. It makes this assumption that these votes belong to Hillary Clinton and somebody else stole votes away from Hillary Clinton. She failed. Your candidate, the person who you were representing, Podesta, failed to reality show hosts. Own it. That has nothing to do with Jill Stein. That has nothing to do with the Russians. That has everything to do with her failure. It has everything to do with her failure. A bunch of Hillbots screaming that we should have had other people's votes. We should have had other people's votes.
Impact.
So, while we may never know precisely whether these efforts played a role in the outcome of the election, when we look at 3 of the states that Russia targeted, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania being among those that they targeted, Pennsylvania as well, if I didn't say that, is it plausible that these Russian actors created enough influence that changed a few thousand votes here and there, and ultimately that could have altered the election?
So let me say the assumption here is that the votes belong to Hillary Clinton and that that my votes were stolen from someone else. And I think that's an insult to American voters who really deserve to choose, who made it perfectly clear that they did not like. In fact, these were the most distrusted and disliked candidates in recorded history. So to try to excuse my votes as being stolen from Hillary is outrageous. But beyond that, we have data. We actually have scientific data on how people voted. And what we know is that the people who voted for me, in vast majority, over 60%, would not have voted if I wasn't there. And of the remainder who would vote, many of them would have gone to Donald Trump. So just asserting that those votes belong to Hillary is just another sign of the arrogance of the Democratic establishment, which is really working overtime here to silence its opposition. And if you look at the smear campaign that's actually been conducted against me about being a Russian tool, when did that get started? Remember, my trip based on foreign policy, on a peace offensive, on addressing nuclear weapons and the
you
climate
were speaking
crisis.
against the war, yep, while you were there.
Absolutely, and trying to promote nuclear disarmament and really substantive climate emergency action, talking not only to Russian media and officials, but on that same trip I spoke to the deputy lead negotiator for China at the climate talks. I spoke with Jeremy Corbyn, the head of the Labour Party in the UK. So these are really critical issues, and I'd say what's wrong with our elected officials that this is not
very
on their
important
agenda.
issues. We've discussed them before on this broadcast, but do you think,
to your
Doctor,
credit, absolutely,
that by being there, perhaps did your presence there maybe uptick their concept of interfering using you?
Well, in fact, my presence there was not covered here in the United States whatsoever. So it wasn't until it became a, a scam, basically, a smear campaign against me. And it speaks volumes about when did that happen, because we were public. There were no backroom meetings going on here. This was all being announced in my press releases, on our website, in our emails.
But they became aware
of you. There was no secrets.
They saw that you had a very active campaign. They were like, Dr. Jill Stein, this is another presidential candidate.
Well, they did not, put it this way, they did not assist me in any way. So that's all well and good. You know, there's an effort being made here to try to denigrate political resistance and the opposition which is growing. And fundamentally, that's what's going on here, is that you have two political parties that are scared stiff of their opposition because they...
Right there. Right there. Right there. This thing of attacking the left. So back in the old days, the McCarthy period, these guys were able to put a bar up on the left, meaning you can only go but so far. Now, they didn't have to do this from the strong arm tactic. They did this from the standpoint of a public or social pressure that people understood that they didn't necessarily want to go too far to the left, or otherwise you might be considered a communist or socialist or something to that effect. Her point is, their attacks on this are assiduously done with this idea of tamping down opposition. Meaning, whether you want to talk about the way they're attacking right-wing sites, or whether you want to talk about the way they're attacking left-wing sites. Both of these things are to protect the center. So a Sanders campaign gets labeled Putin puppets. Vladimir Putin was using Bernie Sanders in order to undermine Hillary Clinton, who was the rightful person who was supposed to be president of the United States. That's the argument. Or that Jill Stein was being used because, again, those votes should have automatically went to Hillary Clinton because, after all, Hillary Clinton was the rightful person to be in that office. Like, this is the logic that they're using for this, but this logic doesn't really make sense. Fuck democracy. If that's the argument that they're making, fuck democracy. You shouldn't be allowed to have other people to run in the debates or run in the contests. Well, that's an insane perspective. That's a mightily insane perspective. Jill Stein is right. This is being done to attack the left. Whether you want to talk about the tamping down on social media with the demonetization of YouTube videos, the shadow banning of certain tweets or Facebook, the locking of certain accounts where they don't necessarily like the commentary that the people are making on those particular accounts, the traffic that's dropped from sites like Alternet or truthdig.org, both of these sites are full of journalistic integrity, but because these sites were on the left, these sites, the traffic plummeted. They're attacking the left. If you're saying something that goes beyond the mainstream thought or beyond what the Democrats are saying, at that point you're a Putin puppet. They've gone so far as to call Nunes, the head of the intelligence committee, an agent of Russia, a Russian agent. This is the ridiculousness that is taking place. And understand, the only thing that they found up to this point were social media and Facebook. All of this is taking place because of one Facebook ad. One Facebook ad. This woman is actually having a conversation with a straight face, talking to Jill Stein about one Facebook ad, and Jill Stein is dismissing one item after the next, and Jill Stein is perfectly right on this. Where was the guy who said he was dangerous? Where was that guy when this conversation came up? Because, like I said, she used the platform of Bernie Sanders legitimizing this particular attack in order to attack Jill Stein. And to take this further, by the way, my point here is this is a platform, and nobody is going to remember the context that Bernie Sanders is trying to inject into that conversation, because if you were being honest, there was very little context that was being injected into the conversation. This was a shameless, you're right, I'm sorry, I'm a disgusting person, I shouldn't have been in the primaries, and yes, Vladimir Putin was assisting my supporters and instigating themselves in Black Lives Matter and Muslims and people who essentially affiliated themselves on the left with me. Nobody's going to get the context. And to make the point clear, this is what's out now. Come on. Bernie Sanders mirrors Trump's blames Hillary Clinton for not combating Russia meddling, denies it helped his campaign. Now, you went on bended knee to Chuck Todd. Bended knee to Chuck Todd because you felt like you needed to go to bended knee on Chuck Todd and essentially throw everybody under the bus in this thing of attacking Donald Trump. They take that story. They say, thank you very much, Mr. Sanders. And then say, Bernie Sanders mirrors Trump. Bernie Sanders is just like Donald Trump. Blames Hillary Clinton for not combating Russian meddling and denies it helped his campaign. They still threw you under the bus. They still threw you under the bus. And guess what? Even though they still threw you under the bus, there's more throwing under the bus to take place because you've allowed them a platform to attack you. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump claimed 2016 elections were rigged, received Kremlin support, opposed critical sanctions on Moscow, and now attempts to sow doubt over U.S. intelligence and law enforcement's finding on Putin interference. On this matter, there are two sides of the same coin. It's no longer just Trump and Russia, buddy. It's Trump, Russia, and Sanders. It's Trump, Russia, and Sanders. And you've added your followers into this. So it's also in Black Lives Matter and Muslims and whoever else has any particular issue with Clinton. Now, Mr. Sanders, she didn't lose because she was a failed candidate. She lost because of Russian interference, writing fucking Facebook ads and Twitter ads that you yourself have given legitimacy to. And let's keep looking. There's more. And in case you're wondering who this loser is, Evan McMullin is the guy that Trump called a clown that nobody ever heard of. And he doesn't matter. But put in a search for Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, and you get some interesting fucking findings. It's important for all Americans to understand that Putin seeks to divide us and attack our democracy by backing extremist politicians and their movements. In 2016, they supported Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. An indictment for Special Counsel Robert Mueller shows Russian agents supported Bernie Sanders and eventually Jill Stein as well as Donald Trump. You know what's not there? Context. You know what's not there? Context. The majority of people only read headlines. The majority of people only read headlines. Special counsel indictment says Russia used fake online personas to support Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Who could have guessed? They engaged in operations primarily intended to communicate derogatory information about Hillary Clinton, to denigrate other candidates such as Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and to support Bernie Sanders and then candidate Donald Trump. Russia influenced the election in favor of Donald Trump by supporting Bernie Sanders and later Jill Stein. Department of Justice set to announce U.S. indicting Russians for interfering in 2016 who, in part, intended to communicate derogatory information about Hillary Clinton and to support Bernie Sanders and then candidate Donald Trump. The media, don't try to act like your hands are clean. You repeatedly oversaturated every Russia propaganda. Hillary Clinton was red meat for your ratings, and you had a full meal every day. You sold America lies about Hillary Clinton as Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump skated. You told their narrative, and they're still hitting you in the knees. And not just hitting you in the knees. It's no longer Trump and Russia. It's also Trump and Russia and Sanders. Trump and Russia and Sanders. Let's see some more. Let's see some more. You allowed yourself to be open to this. I mean, you've given them credibility saying that your supporters didn't have two brain cells to rub together. So let's see some more. You mean cat videos and 46,000 worth of political ads supporting Bernie Sanders, Black Lives Matter, Hillary Clinton, the Second Amendment, Donald Trump, and tolerance for Islam was not Kremlin-directed, sophisticated, active measures to get Trump elected? No, you're a stupid idiot. They weren't. They were a bunch of Facebook ads and Twitter ads. For years, they've been trying to get the DNC and the media to focus on Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump connection to the NRA and gun industry, but somehow Hillary Clinton Wall Street connection was more important, even when over 70,000 people died from guns during the election season. This guy's an idiot. Dude, you understand how shallow, like, yeah, the Wall Street thing is more important. Bernie Sanders has a D- rating on guns. What the fuck are you talking about? These are the maniacs. These are the maniacs who you're trying to get to vote for you. And I get it. These people are nuts. These people are not wrapped too tight. These people have a screw loose. Ultimately, they are looking at the world and they say, oh my God, I don't understand how that woman lost. She was the greatest thing. She was too good for this world. She was too good for this world. Well, this guy and a bunch of other people on this page, a bunch of other Hillbots, hear this information. They hear you come to account, looking crazy on TV, like you're in a hostage video, giving credibility to it. And they say, thank you for the credibility. Now we're going to hit you in the knees anyway. And not just hit you in the knees anyway. Now we have a pretext to smear your supporters. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. This is precisely why I said Sanders should have handled it more like Jill Stein and not to allow shit like this to take place. Not to allow shit like this to take place at all. So I am gonna, wow, there's a lot of people here tonight. Guys, if any of my patrons are here, feel free to call in. I think I have my phone thing up. Oh wow. Bill O'Reilly. Billo, how do you feel about our currency featuring slaveholders? They should all be changed in my honest opinion. I'm also interested in your thoughts on July 4th as a PLC. I don't know what PLC is. By the way, you're my new fave. Keep up the good work. Oh, thanks, man. POC. Point of. Yeah, don't know what it is. I think I know what it is, but I don't know what it is. Currency featuring slaveholders. So let me put it through the context of here. So in Virginia, particularly in Richmond, we have Monument Avenue. Monument Avenue has all sorts of, you know, we're the home of the Confederacy. Hold on, give me 1 second, and I need to find it. I always miss that. Ah, here we go. Brian, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, brother? I just got off of work and saw you were live.
Oh, good timing. Good timing.
Yeah.
So, the topic.
Here's my thing.
Oh, go for it. Okay, so you heard it.
How is Hillary not the biggest Russian puppet? She tanked her own goddamn campaign.
But this is precisely my point. And this is why I in my mind, you should not have given them an inch on it, meaning Sanders. They don't care. Like, reality doesn't matter. Like, it's one of those things of, you had a candidate who was the most unpopular candidate in the history of the candidates, with the exception of Trump. And that woman ran the campaign as if America owed her the presidency.
Right.
Like, and they did not want her. You had all of these people voting for other people and everything else. Now, they don't look at that and say, maybe there was something wrong with the candidate. They don't look at this and say, maybe something's wrong with the party. Maybe something needs to be retooled. Maybe something's not working right. I mean, we did lose 1,100 seats all throughout the United States. Maybe there's something else going on. They don't look at it that way. In their heads, it was Trump and Russia and Comey. That's the only reason that woman would have ever lost. Trump and Russia and Comey. And they have no paradigm of the world to understand why she would lose. So anything that comes up, regardless of how ridiculous, they're talking about Facebook ads. Like, it's like, come on.
It cost like $10, $15 a piece, and it somehow managed to tank a multi-billion-dollar campaign. How do you do that?
It makes no sense. This is what I mean. These people are maniacs. It makes no sense. I mean, they would have to believe, like, what they would have to believe to be true is amazing. But they do. So nobody would say that these ads had impact. That's the first point. That's the first premise. Nobody would say they had impact. Even if you're right, they had no impact on the election. And then from there, it's like, well, you're going to have to believe that these ads, these Facebook and Twitter ads, half of which happened after the election, mind you, but these Facebook and Twitter ads had to have more gravity than her own Twitter army, who she had out there saying bad things about Bernie Sanders and bashing her opponent.
It had Brock and his own,
right. Her own Facebook ads, her own commercials, her own ads that she was having, you know, these ad buys, her sitting on Jimmy Kimmel or this particular person or that particular person, her singing with Mary J. Blige, her having one politician going out talking for her, having Obama screaming in a mic talking about protect my legacy, vote for Hillary Clinton. All of, like, and $1 billion and over $1 billion. Now, That's an amazing thing to look another human being in the face and say, yes, man, I believe those ads were more significant than all of that stuff. And you'd see, I mean, I'm looking on Twitter. This is the stuff that they're saying on Twitter. I mean, Bernie Sanders has a D- with the gun industry. And he's like, for years, they've been trying to convince the DNC and media to focus on Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump's connection to NRA and the gun industry. But somehow Hillary Clinton's Wall Street speeches were more important. The fact that that woman was lying, talking about she didn't want to tell what was in her Wall Street speeches, and the Wall Street speeches comes up, and she's essentially willing to give over all of it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We need to focus on Bernie Sanders' D- rating with the NRA. Oh, man, this is too ridiculous.
I mean, you'd have to suspend the laws of reality for this shit.
And they do. And they do. Oh, here we are. Russian bots are out of force. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders today. Just block them. We can't tell them apart, so just block them all. Treat them all like bots were created by the Russian warehouse. So everybody who says, dude, I think you're a maniac, you're a Russian bot. You're a Russian bot. That's amazing, man. This is profoundly amazing. Here's another one. The New York Times said you pledged to work together to defeat Donald Trump, but you stayed in the race another 6 weeks and helped spread Russia talking points.
I mean, this shit is just so out of...
This is amazing. This is amazing. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. I'm curious to know, what are the Russian talking points that they're talking about? Like, are they, like, for instance, if you're talking about Hillary Clinton murdering people abroad, that's true. I mean, Bernie Sanders was like, they were saying really bad things. Well, she was the architect of the Libya thing. I mean, they did kill a lot of people. They have open air slave markets.
I mean, there's no denying that. There's no way to deny that. Obama himself said it was one of his biggest mistakes, and she was the one behind it.
And mind you, was perfectly okay with doing the same thing in Syria. Perfectly okay. So people aren't crazy for saying, well, wait a minute, that woman destroyed a country and she was perfectly willing to go and destroy another country. Not to mention they caught her on tape talking about hacking an election or stealing an election in the Palestinian elections. I mean, yeah, these people are maniacs. They're maniacs. I try to be compassionate because I try to think about where I was like in 2010 or something like that. But Jesus Christ, man, these people are infuriating.
It's like they expect us to just take them at face value when there are all these other facts that are just impossible to ignore. I mean, what reality are these people living in?
They want that woman to be president so bad. And I honestly, you know, when Huffington Post had her winning at 98%, do you remember that on election night? They had Huffington Post had Hillary Clinton winning by 98%. Yeah,
I remember that.
So you can imagine that they think it's a lock. Like they full well completely think it's a lock. One of the guys I remember I was talking to, he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win by like 330 votes. He thought it was going to be a landslide. And I thought he had lost his mind. I thought he was on drugs. And he was like, yeah, man, she's going to win this and it's a lock. And I was like, okay, I don't even see how she wins, let alone break 300. Now, so you can imagine that if that's your context. So like if in your head, you're like, oh, it's a lock. I don't even have to stay up to watch the election. I'm just going to bed because Hillary Clinton has this.
You know what's funny? My brother worked on her campaign. And
Seriously?
He worked on her campaign. He was working for her in Nevada.
Yeah.
And I talked to him the day before, and I'm like, "What's your feeling?" And he had nothing to say. He said, "The attitude here is very somber. We know that this is going to be a stretch if she wins."
Wow.
He knew it was going to be a stretch.
That's amazing. I remember. I think the thing that when I think it was the day before the election. And in the news, it was like the Hillary campaign is sending people to Wisconsin. And I think it was like Pennsylvania, but definitely Wisconsin. And they were like, and I'm thinking, if you lose Wisconsin, you've lost this election. Like why is Wisconsin even up for grabs? Like, you know, it's you're talking about a state that Obama like crushed in. And you're at the point where they think you're going to lose it, and you're sending people like in this kind of emergency, you know, we need to get people to Wisconsin at this last moment. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, that woman is going to lose.
Yeah, it's too late at that point. You're done.
Yeah, I was like, that woman is going to lose. Either she is going to lose or this is going to be magnificently close. And I couldn't see the state. So I thought to myself, she's probably going to win, but I don't see how she wins. That was my dilemma. Like, I couldn't necessarily see the state to fall, even though I had this feeling like, I was like, oh man, I feel like she could lose this, she might lose this, but intellectually, I think she's going to win it, if that makes sense. It's this weird thing between how you feel versus what you're thinking.
Yeah. Right.
Oh man, I'm curious. When your brother was talking about the campaign in Nevada, what did he say? Let me ask this way: is your brother an honest broker? That's the first point. He's your brother, so I understand there's a little bias in your answer. And when he's looking at what's taking place in Nevada, did that have anything to do with the primary itself, if that makes sense, or just purely the election, the general election?
This had more to do with the general election.
Okay.
Because that's when he was really in full swing working for her campaign, and he said just from the attitude on the ground, they were just having a very difficult time getting a positive attitude from the pollers.
Wow.
And I thought that was extremely telling. And so when I was talking to other people later on that night and them saying that they thought she had it in the bag, I'm like, I don't think so. I don't see how you're getting that.
Well, it seems that screaming at people to vote for your candidate is not necessarily the best way to motivate people to vote for your candidate. Like, who knew that saying people, you need to vote for Hillary Clinton, you need to vote for Hillary Clinton. You know, Donald Trump is going to eat your babies and it's going to be your fault if you don't vote for Hillary Clinton. Like, apparently that is not the best way to encourage people to vote for somebody.
No, apparently not.
Yeah, apparently not. I mean, that is not the best strategy in the world. And that's where you were. Yeah, you know, Cenk Uygur getting on TV. I'm voting for Hillary Clinton because of blah, 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 blah. Sam Cedar, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. Like, all these guys, they're like falling in line, talking about why they're voting for Hillary Clinton. And you're stuck with one debate after the next where people are like, who's the greatest evil? And if that's your conversation, like, you're Donald fucking Trump. I thought Donald Trump was a maniac. And if the conversation that people are having is, what's the greatest evil?
If they're having that conversation and you're in it, you're not coming out of that well.
You're not doing well. You're not doing well. And the other person who's on the other end of that is Donald Trump. And they don't know the answer to the question. That's not good. That's not good. Yeah, man. There's an argument between Chris Hedges and Robert Reich that is amazing on Democracy Now! And Chris Hedges is right. And it's funny. It's like when you're having the conversation with people, they're indignant about it. Like, it's like they don't understand how you're processing events to think that these things are, like, so alike. And so Robert Reich is trying to keep his cool, but at a certain point he's like, Chris, are you telling me that you don't see the difference in these things? And Chris Hedges, personally, I think Chris Hedges wins that argument because Chris Hedges is kind of making this larger point of, if you want things done, doing the same thing that you've always done is not the way to go about it. And at some point, we need to change because we can't keep going the way that we're going. Robert Reich doesn't really have an answer for that. I mean, ultimately, Robert Reich can say, in this specific instance, this person is marginally better. But is that really the argument that you always want to continuously have to make to people, that this person is a lesser evil? It's like, shit, man, you can't even give positive attributes of the person who you're trying to support. Best that you can say is what they are in relation to what the other person is. That's a fucked up way of going about politics. Fucked up way. So, all right, let's see. I'm seeing green, even though this thing is on red. Oh, Bill, let me go back to these two. Troy O'Fallon, I appreciate your work, Jamal. Thank you. Oh, dude, thank you, Troy. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And how do you feel about slaveholders? All right, so our Monument Avenue, for all intents and purposes, is Richmond is the home of the Confederacy. Monument Avenue is one monument after the next. Now, they've added Bilbo Jingles Robertson, and they've added somebody else, like one or two black statues over the past, let's say, decade or so. But for all intents and purposes, it's the history of the state. If the money changes, yes, change it. And maybe there's a difference between money, I guess, and the statues. I guess my feeling is, moving the statue doesn't change the history, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't change the historical context. Them removing Robert E. Lee doesn't change the fact that this was the home of the Confederacy. I don't know how many people think about it as they're driving by that, oh, this is Robert E. Lee, this, you know, it's home of the Confederacy. I can think of so many things that adversely affect human beings that go beyond just the symbolic thing of, okay, we're going to remove the statue, but the poverty and the degradation and not having health care, not having the things that you did, those things will stay, but we at least remove the statue. The statue is fine, leave the statue. If you're there to change the statue, fair enough. But the money that you're going to spend to get rid of the statue, how about we just invest in human beings more? Let's say it that way. As for the money itself, if you get rid of Andrew Jackson, the guy was a fucking murderer. I mean, he was a genocidal maniac. I don't. Yes, these guys are historical figures. If there is somebody better that can be on the dollar or on those bills, let's put somebody better on those bills. I don't have this. I'm not hung up on that, though, if that makes sense. Like, of all the issues that bug the shit out of me, that one is far on that list. That's far down on that list. But I remember the statue thing became a big deal where people were really talking about moving the statues and everything else. I didn't have that strong feelings about the statues. I felt this was the home of the Confederacy. This is the South. I mean, it's like you think the people in the South don't know they're in the South? If you want to add additional statues for some other kind of historical thing, have at it. But I strongly feel it's like this thing of what are the things that are adversely affecting me and people who look like me, and even people who don't look like me. Just we're talking about just poverty in the society itself. It's poverty. It's this thing of the way we're obsequious to wealth and we lie and behave. And I'm talking about from the standpoint of politics. These guys are bought off to take a certain cadence and act a particular way. Removing the statue is symbolic. It's not bad. It's symbolic. Are there better ways to deal with these vestiges of slavery? And yes. And it goes beyond the statue. It goes beyond the statue. And look, because if you want to say the statue is a vestige of slavery, and if you want to say the money is this kind of vestige of the past and everything else, and these things need to change, what about income inequality? Like, when you're talking about income inequality from the standpoint of African Americans to other races in the country, let's say with whites, it doesn't compare. Like, the amount of money or the amount of wealth that blacks have is infinitesimal in comparison. And it is hard to come away with that thinking that this has been an equal system or this has been fair. Well, of course it hasn't been fair. You had one group who was held in slavery for God knows how long, what, 400 years, 500 years. And then over top of that, after they were left out, you still had this thing of Jim Crow laws. And then even then, up until maybe the 80s, you had where these guys were blocked out of certain jobs, prevented from going into certain housing areas and everything else. In the same way that statue of Robert E. Lee, or that statue of some murderer or some guy who was part of the South, or for that matter, somebody who was on the money. In the same way that those things are vestiges of the past of this nation, and the same way that those things, people want to rectify those things, get rid of those things, I would make the point that poverty is also a vestige of the way this country has pursued its affairs. And between all of them, that will be the thing that you should deal with first. I guarantee you that the poverty aspect is more important than the cash or the statues. So, sorry, that was a winding thing, but it took me a while to get to my point. I started to think about it as I was going through it. Yeah. Shit. Let's see. But Bill O'Reilly, oh man, that name trips me out. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you too, Troy. Fuck it, we'll do it live. We'll do it live. This fucking thing sucks. Okay, no one knows what I'm talking about on this. There's a oh fuck, man, I gotta show it. There's no way to explain it. I have to show it. Gotta show it. I'm sorry. Bill O'Reilly used to work on a here we are. So Bill O'Reilly used to work on
tomorrow and
Inside Edition. Now, when he worked for Inside Edition, Bill O'Reilly was an asshole. Bill O'Reilly even came across as somewhat of an asshole. The funny part is, I don't know how many people, if you've heard your wife or your girlfriend, she's talking to you and you guys may be arguing or something like that. She picks up the phone. She's like, hello. It's like you're acting like you just won't, being pissed off right there. Bill O'Reilly is getting pissed off at the guy who works with Bill O'Reilly. And he is losing his shit. And so this is the famous Do It Live video. And if you haven't watched this video, you are in for a fucking treat. This is one of the best videos on the net, on the web. Fuck it, I'll do it live. Do it live. This fucking thing sucks. This is awesome.
And that is it for us today. Okay, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
No, there it is. We are going to do Sting, yeah.
Okay, but now I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Ready? Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out.
Sting is going to do. It's a video. Sting video.
What is
for credits?
I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, go.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it.
Okay. In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a. I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. Yes. Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
Damn, it froze at the end. He throws his ink pen. He gets up and he's like, I can't do it. Can't do it. Fuck it, do it live. Do it live. That is, I swear to God, man, that is one of my favorite videos. That is one of my favorite videos. It's one of those things where, when the 92 presidential debate, same shit now as then. Pretty much. It is, man, I love that video. That is one of my favorite videos. One of the other ones is Ted Cruz sitting under the Donald Trump banner. So if you remember, Donald Trump called called his wife ugly, said something like his dad tried to kill Kennedy. Like, it was just some weird shit that Donald Trump was throwing at Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz, they asked him, he said, will you support Donald Trump at the end of this? He says, I'm gonna beat him. Not so much. Not so much. Not only just didn't he not beat him, after calling his wife ugly, after saying that his dad or his granddad tried to kill John F. Kennedy, after saying all this bad stuff about Ted Cruz is sitting under a Trump Pence sign, calling people for that one Donald Trump. Oh, it's so funny. It hurts. It hurts. It is, oh man. You talking about getting a thrill off of that dude's misery sitting under that sign? Oh, yeah, man. It was the greatest thing ever. It was the greatest thing ever. Would you like to spank the rest of it? What? What? Give us some stop the hammering, Jamal. What? Stop the hammering? What do you mean? Does it take music for JT to get excited? No, it doesn't take music for me to get excited. This shit's awesome. Let's see. What's this? Bob Ramirez. Watch the 92 presidential debates. Same shit as now. Oh, you mean Bill Clinton and George Bush, right? Bill Clinton, George Bush. Bill Clinton, George Bush. O'Donnell was priceless too. I love hype mics. Grinning a libertarian. So yes, the O'Donnell one was awesome. The O'Donnell one was awesome. I think somebody lost their job over that one. whoever leaked that tape, if I am not mistaken, lost their job. Whoever leaked that tape lost his job. O'Donnell flipped out. O'Donnell flipped out. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah, I am like that off air, guys. This is just how I am. Yeah, the O'Donnell one was awesome too. Here we go. It's only fair. Here we are. You know, now, to be fair to O'Donnell, there have been moments where I've been doing my videos and some noise bleeds through. And it's like your wife or something, or your dog comes to the room, or you hear listening to music or something like that. Sometimes you're like, okay, is this going to translate? But the problem with this is you lose your stream of consciousness. Like, so it's almost like channeling in a weird way. The stuff that comes out of you is stuff that just comes out of you. You're kind of pointing your perspective in a particular direction, and stuff just kind of comes out based on, you know, the stuff that you've already put into you. When something interrupts that, it breaks the thought, it breaks the channel, and your attention immediately diverges between those two things. Now, as somebody who doesn't do two things at once well, it fucks me up. It fucks up. It's sometimes I can recover, sometimes I can kind of mend the gap, but oftentimes you end up in this thing of a space where you lost track of either where you were going, if you lost the word that you were going to get to, or you've lost something. And it's aggravating. I guess my point. It's fucking aggravating. No, and sometimes it's like, will you be quiet? I'm trying to do a video. Like it does make you aggravating. Now, that being said, Lawrence O'Donnell flipped out. I've never flipped out like this. I don't think I've ever flipped out like this over anything. But if you're looking at millions of people are looking at you on television, and you know you're gonna, God damn it, everything that you say is gonna be picked apart. Everything that you do is for the most part gonna be picked apart. And when you make an argument that's not quite right, if somebody says something that's not quite right, you don't want to look bad. You're the face of that particular network, and they're going to be hitting you in the face over and over again by people who are trying to attack you or your position because they don't like you. So I can understand a little bit of where he's coming from. By the same token, he loses his shit also. I still think Bill O'Reilly is funnier, but let's take a look at this one too. The Lawrence O'Donnell. Fuck it, I'll do it live.
See how that one goes. Thank you, Rachel. Well, today, President Trump visited Texas, but he forgot to bring any empathy with him. But he did bring a hat that is for sale.
58 seconds.
What's going on? Why am I losing this? Why don't I have sound? All right, it's back. Someone's pressing buttons and turning my sound off. Who's asking for a Labor Day rundown in my ear? Someone in that control room is out of control.
She liked that pun. Someone in that control room is out of control. I got to be honest, I hate seeing this to some degree. The Bill O'Reilly thing, I don't particularly like Bill O'Reilly, so it is what it is. Lawrence O'Donnell was one of those guys I used to like when I used to watch MSNBC. And because I used to like him, it's a little weird to see the snarky guy under normal circumstances looking at the camera like he's going to murder somebody. And he's looking like he looks so angry. Like it's... The Bill O'Reilly thing, I think, is comical. I think even if I was in the studio, I would have laughed at that because Bill O'Reilly is just fucking ridiculous in the way he's acting. Lawrence O'Donnell looks like he's just absolutely angry, like he's going to murder somebody. Let's take a look at it. Let's finish it. I'm not going to break him up. Fuck around, find me, and... Fuck me up like he's going to beat the shit out of this guy.
20 seconds.
Fucking... God damn it.
10 seconds.
Get.
5, 4.
So the president went to Texas today, and as Politico reports, he did not meet a single storm victim.
Okay, something doesn't want you guys to see this video. I don't know what it is. Let's try it one more time.
See how that one goes. Someone's pressing buttons and turning my sound off.
All right, there we go.
Who's asking for a Labor Day rundown in my ear? Someone in that control room is out of control.
All right, I'm just gonna put this at the bottom. The Lawrence O'Donnell video apparently does not want to play, so yeah, I don't know what that's about. So I will put this one at the bottom. You guys can see at your own leisure. In fact, I'll put it on the bottom now. It's still funny as all hell. If I joke O'Reilly, Lawrence O'Donnell's also fair game. And like I said, the Lawrence O'Donnell one, I feel slightly a little about, only because I think I can understand where he's coming from a little bit more than Riley. Riley just looked like he was fucking insane. O'Donnell was priceless too. I love high mics. Yeah, the high mic thing is a trip. I can't tell if that's your throbber or mine. Throbber. Bill O'Reilly, me too. Mikey Mike, the Rush. Hugo Black, Fox's mainstream media too. I hear Jesse Waters, the Clinton Foundation, for instance, and Dana Pierdo defend Hillary Clinton's uranium one sale to Putin. Did you now? Wow. You know, the issue with that is more so the potential bribery. It's the corruption. It's like not just that. Also, you know, they've made this argument that the uranium never left the country. That's not even true. Like some of that stuff was able to get through Canada in order to get out the country itself. They've downplayed that magnificently. I mean, ultimately, the issue with this is corruption. I mean, they have the FBI informant right now, the guy who had all of these orders on him, who Loretta Lynch illegally put a gag order on the guy. The guy couldn't talk. Well, he's singing now. He is singing now. And he is saying that he was paid in order to send a certain amount of money to the Clinton Foundation in these installments, with the idea that they would allow the Uranium One deal to go through in addition to other deals between the Russian and the United States government. Fucking mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Did you do the graphic for the Putin puppet? I did not. Bonnie Flournoy. All right, Bonnie Flournoy. No, Bonnie, I did not actually. I found that online, which is that much sadder because it means other people are coming to the same conclusion that Vladimir Putin is manipulating Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, and Jill Stein. And look at Bernie's face. Look at Bernie's face on this. Look at his face. I guess, look, don't weaken your own position. That's all. Like don't fall into Mr. Oblivious and everything else. Part of the reason that people loved you is because you didn't do that. Now, mind you, part of the reason that he didn't do that is because he didn't feel like he had a chance. There was no tethers on him. There's no holes on him. Bernie Sanders can do whatever Bernie Sanders wanted to do because Bernie Sanders was essentially powered by the human beings who was giving him cash. What happens when that independent senator is no longer independent? What happens? You're seeing what happens. What happens? What happens? Jamal, imagine you're head of TYT. How would you handle the current Russia story? Peter Lehrman. I would do the Russia story the same way I'm doing it now. I do it the same way. Like, because I don't like this idea of adding more significance to it than what it is. I would make no changes. I wouldn't force my other viewers to change, for that matter, if that makes sense. Like, if I had a host on the show that the host wanted to take a different perspective on it, I would let that host take a different perspective on it. I wouldn't force them. But my perspective on this wouldn't have changed. No. I mean, for that matter, I wouldn't have pushed my network to vote for Hillary Clinton. I wouldn't have did a lot of different things. Those are a lot of things that I don't think I would have done. But I would not be towing this garbage. My job in this is not to get us closer to war. My job is to pull us back from the brink of war. Currently, the way that we're interacting with these things, Cenk Uygur making the argument that these are Nerf bombs, that these things didn't really matter that much when the United States bombed Syria. That is a laughably ridiculous argument that he's making. Not to mention it's dangerous as all hell. It's dangerous as all hell. Why do you believe that Cenk is buying into the Russia BS? Because I think Cenk, for all intents and purposes, would vote for the Democrat regardless of who that Democrat is. I think he's a Democrat. I mean, he affiliated himself with a group called Justice Democrat. I mean, the third party thing was not part of the mix. He was willing to vote for Hillary Clinton. That woman is against all of it. I mean, the overwhelming majority of his values as a lefty. He was still willing to put that woman in office and give that woman his vote, to co-sign her. I think he hates Donald Trump. I think he's terrified of Donald Trump. So I think at the end of the be all, it boils down to, I am going to use this brick to hit Donald Trump with. Whether he believes it or not is kind of besides the point. It's very possible that he tells himself, or he convinces himself that he believes it. I mean, when I heard him debate Cal, I thought he was insane. I thought he was absolutely insane. But he did indeed believe it. If another human being is looking you in the face and telling you that bombing another country is not that big of a deal, that those things are Nerf bombs. They're Nerf bombs. They're not real bombs. Now, mind you, at the very moment that he's saying that, within a day or so, around the moment that he's saying that, the United States did attack Syria and did kill over 100 Syrians. That was like 100 Syrians. The United States, after killing 100 Syrians, said they did that in self-defense, despite the United States being illegally in their country. I have a significant problem with the way that the TYT has taken this. I have a significant problem with the way they've taken this. Troy O'Fallon, Jamal, you know Cenk was once a Republican, right? Yeah, I know. Peter Lehrman, to be honest, Jamal, the only one of YouTube chats who reads out my name. Oh, to be honest, Jamal is the only one of YouTube chats who reads out my name, which only exists because I'm too lazy to exchange it for a nickname. You're fine. You're fine. Bob Ramirez said, the danger is people who were too damn dainty to vote for Donald Trump. No, Bob. No, Bob. No, not so much. Not so much. It was a miracle when Hillary lost. Marla 79. It was a miracle that people were not so shaken to their core that they didn't put her in that office. But I'm glad they didn't. Like with the caveat that nothing fucking horrid takes place. I mean, yes, bad things have been taking place because you have a Republican in that office. But your only potential for change, is for the way it to go down the way it went down. There is no other context of change. No, they were not going to run a Democrat against Hillary Clinton in 2020 if Hillary Clinton would have won the election in 2016. It wouldn't have mattered what Hillary Clinton did in that office. Ultimately, they would have told you the exact same thing they told you in this one. You need to vote for Hillary Clinton because the Republican is a maniac. Your only chance for change is this. This looks horrible. It's somewhat miserable. You wake up in the morning and says, oh my God, that guy's a reality show host. But let's be clear on something. We are going to hit a wall at some point. Like, we have a weird society. The way we've organized ourselves is fucking bizarre. I mean, you have a planet of finite resources, and in that planet of finite resources, we've conjured up an economic model that allows us to burn through resources as fast as possible, because that's the way in which people put profit or resources, their own resources or the liquid asset, into their own pockets. Now, this destroys our planet wholesale. Meaning, if you want to talk about the energy concerns or the energy needs in order to do the things that we do and to live the way that we live, if you want to talk about the way we ship goods from one point to the next, not taking the environmental toll in that at all, completely ignoring the environmental toll, going just purely with this idea of, is it profitable for me to do this? We can't keep going the way that we're going. That's my point. That's my point. I mean, even if you're talking about this standpoint just from scientists, I was reading the report the other day where the guy was like, you have 5 years left. 80% of the ice is gone from the Arctic. Methane will start leaking at some point into the sky, making climate change that much worse. Taking everything else off the table, just going with the idea of climate. That's a game ender. Climate is a game ender. Now, if I'm talking to a right-winger, that right-winger could say, well, yeah, that doesn't exist. But most lefties are not in that denial stage. I mean, most lefties are in this thing of, these guys build our boats, our bombs. These guys, you know, build our devices to which measure the universe. They built our satellites. They built our rocket ships. They built the ship that, you know, the satellite that got to Mars, that got to Saturn. They built all this shit. Why would they also fuck up on this? Like, if they built all that stuff, it talks about a certain understanding of the way that the world and the universe is put together. This is just physical materiality. We're not talking about any kind of new agey stuff. If you're not using their research, and if you're not using the guys who study this stuff, then what are you using to come to the conclusion that this doesn't exist? Not to mention, what's the downside? I fundamentally don't understand the downside. You're talking about green energy Green New Deal. You're talking about a Marshall type plan of changing the energy structure over of the world. Now, the only argument against this is, well, dude, this may be expensive, but you're talking about the world at stake. You're talking about the world at stake. An asteroid is going to hit the planet. And yes, there may be some people who quibble about the cost, but at the end of the day, the reality of it is an asteroid is going to hit the planet. The asteroid that hits the planet is a real thing. The people who die on that planet is a real thing. The things that are going to be destroyed and the systems that are going to be lost were real things. The money that was the hedge on that, or the money that kept you from doing the things that you needed to do to prevent that calamity from taking place, that is not real. That is not real. It's not real at all. So, I mean, look, you can count this in several different ways. It's not just in, like, climate change. What, 40% of the extinctions that have ever taken place have taken place in the last 50 years. You're talking about, like, our oceans ensconced with plastic and whatnot. You're talking about environmental degradation, either from climate or either from animal agriculture. Meaning just the very basic way we function and govern is destroying the world that we live in. What, 60% of the globe is in poverty, like living off of $10 a day? I mean, you can rattle the stats one after the next. What's the number of people who die not being able to get access to health care? What is the number of people who don't necessarily have access to potable water? I mean, come on. Come on. We have a world of fucking abundance. I mean, we have the technical know-how to supply all of the things that everyone needs on this planet. If we're talking about war, if we're talking about poverty, if we're talking about all of those things at this point are purely just choices. Those are choices that the society makes. Meaning the society makes a choice not to deal with the issues that it needs to deal with in order to make sure people are fed and clothed and have access to the basics of their lives. So yeah. Jim Hayden, thank you, man. And Jim Hayden, leave a comment when you do that. I like the comments. I like the comments. But thank you, dude. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Somebody said, do I dream politics? I don't know if I dream it, but I think my wife sometimes gets overwhelmed when I get immersed in a particular thing. So like if it was like at one point it might have been chess, at another point it might have been aliens, at another point it might have been new agey stuff, at another point it might have been writing, it just runs the gambit. I mean, some of that stuff it wasn't when I was with her, but in this case, the UFO stuff when I was studying that would freak her out. That would freak her out. That would absolutely freak her out. It would freak her out because we started having like strange phenomena that was taking place, and she was like, she's like, look, I understand you've been meditating and stuff, and I understand that some of those meditations can be somewhat weird. Just be aware that there's more than one of you here. Like, meaning there's two of us in the household, and you're freaking me out. Between that and politics, I don't know which one she hates the most. Like I said, the UFO stuff would freak her out because that's me trying to understand a phenomena and trying to study that phenomena. Meaning you have to produce the phenomena. It's not enough to just read it in a book. You know, it's like if I can't directly experience it, then I can't necessarily know whether it's real or not. It's like I either have to take somebody else's words for it or not. Even if it's something subjective, if you experience it, you have a different context on it as opposed to somebody else who just has a conception of it. And you just accept it as being true or false, in which case you're still stuck in this context of belief. We started getting weird phenomena. So one of the weird phenomena is we were walking to the car one morning, and this small craft went buzzing by. Now, the reason why I'm hesitant on saying this is because it went by so fast that it was hard to know if anything went by at all. And I know that sounds bizarre, but that's the way it was. It was like, wait a minute, what the fuck just happened? It was one of those moments. We were walking to the car, there's something zooms by at this remarkable speed, and I remember it as this kind of egg shape, this small egg shaped thing that goes by that has this kind of aura around it. Now she sees it, processes it as there's something that just flew by. Yes, it had the same dimensions that you're describing, but no, I don't know what it was. We just get weird stuff. Or pictures where, you know, where it was like there's nothing in the sky, but all of a sudden when you show the picture, there's stuff on the picture. Yeah, I started getting weirdness. But the weirdness would slightly freak her out. Me, I got over the weirdness. I was okay with the weirdness because the weirdness to me was, you know, if you're talking about phenomenology, you're talking about weirdness. And I've had enough weird experiences when I was a kid where the stuff didn't necessarily freak me out that much. It took me a little bit. So when I was younger, I used to have these really bizarre experiences. Like I would be like 8 years old, and I was be laying in bed, and something would walk into my room. Couldn't see it, definitely could hear it, and definitely could feel it when it sat on the bed. There was clear depression in the bed. This would freak me out to no end because I had no paradigm with which to hold this in. There's no way to understand it. But it would happen over and over and over again. And I would get to the point where I would bury my head into the covers and I would think of myself in a bubble and thought to myself that however scared I was to dump all that energy into the bubble with this idea of keeping whatever the fuck that was away from me, it would freak me out. And you know, when you're a kid logic is if I put my head under the covers, if I can't see it, it can't see me, it can't hurt me. So that was weird. That was bizarre. That progressed to pulling at the covers, which again was odd and strange. But again, at that point, the bubble thing would at least calm me or calm my nerves enough where I was intact. At some point, I think I got annoyed and was like, "Please cut this shit out." At which point, it stopped. But that shit went on for a while, freaking me the fuck out. As I got older, though, I started having a better understanding of it, or a better paradigm in which to kind of accommodate it, and kind of put all of it under this umbrella of, I don't know what this is, but this is fucking fascinating, and approach it from the standpoint of, I don't know what this is fucking fascinating. When I was younger, I was more into the new agey thing, but at some point along the way, I realized that the first perspective was the right perspective. I have no idea what this is, but this is fucking amazing. And go to from there. I mean, even if you're encountering something, and even if that something is talking to you, and even if that's something that's interacted with you, you still stuck with this thing of, I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know if that's an aspect of me. I don't know if that thing is outside of me. And if it is outside of me, just because I'm seeing it a particular way doesn't necessarily mean it's the way that I'm seeing it. Like, it gets bizarre. It gets interesting. I guess my point is, I am okay with that stuff because I had a track record of dealing with weird shit like that. She did not. And so for her, that would be somewhat off-putting. The politics stuff, it's voluminous. Like, it's voluminous. Like, whereas one might have freaked her out slightly every so often, she'd be like, okay, this is slightly freaking me out, or you're listening to something while I'm trying to sleep and I'm having nightmares. It goes from that to, okay, dude, you're telling me about this particular thing that's happening somewhere else that I know you're extraordinarily interested in, but I don't care about it. It's bugging the shit out of me. It's that type of stuff. It's that type of stuff. So, I don't think I dream it, though. Dream it is a little too strong. Rob, Illinois. Jamal told me he had a dream who is handcuffed to a bed with a ball gag, wearing a leather dog mask, while Hillary Clinton is pulling Benoit balls out of his ab. What are Benoit balls? I don't know what Benoit balls are. Rob, I think you're telling on yourself, man. I don't know what Benoit balls are. I don't know what those are. I think you're talking about anal beads. But Benoit balls. Oh, man. Yeah, dude. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. I've said powerful women is, you know, that could be somewhat sexy, but I don't know, man. I don't know, man. It's kind of terrifying. Troll Fallon. About 1990-ish, my uncle from Quebec City was visiting me from Arizona. I lived near the mountain range border of California and Nevada. I was a security guard then and outside in my own car. Oh, wait. I think you're about to say something fucking amazing. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I think there's another planet like Earth so the elites can go. They're not telling us and leave us peasants here. They don't care to destroy this current planet. Mr. X, I think they are idiots, and I think they believe that they will be perfectly okay. That they don't connect this thing of you're not going to have anywhere else to go. I think they believe that ultimately their wealth is, for whatever reason, they believe it's to be real. And as they believe that wealth to be real, that wealth will be some kind of protection for them. I mean, you're looking for good sense out of it. You're looking for good sense out of it. So, like, what I mean by you're looking for good sense out of it, you're looking for the logic of it. I don't think there's a logic to it. I think you have human beings behaving as human beings, or human beings behaving in a way that's despoiling their own environment, thinking that they'll find some other, you know, recourse or to deal with it. Not to mention, they may look at it from the standpoint of, I'm going to be dead in 30 years. Fuck do I care? What do I care? Why do I need to make sure that the earth is okay? That type of stuff. I have no idea what they think. Hell, for all I know, it could be some kind of mass extermination. But yeah, I have no idea. No clue. Alright, let's see. Is there anybody else before I call it a day? Look, Clement Day. Leave Jamal alone. Can't you see he's in mourning? What am I in mourning about? What am I in mourning about? Like Jamal doesn't have a drawer full of them. Full of what? I think I'm being sexually harassed in some way. I'm not sure how though. Oh, there you are, anal beads. I see. Well, Rob, you're the one who knew what they were. I mean, you knew the special name for them. My uncle was the engineer of the Bell Systems in Canada. Is this where I look for a used washing machine? What? What? You guys are Russian agents, man. You guys are trying to undermine this channel on behalf of Hillary Clinton to sow discord among the political system. I think that's what this is. The wealth is protection, though. Yeah. With enough money, you can build a massively rich, secure underground bunker. In fact, those things already exist for the super rich. Yeah, I guess the question, though, is, have you ever played Fallout? In Fallout, some of the commercials for the bunkers, they're like, you know, it's like, hey, you can have this beautiful oasis in an apocalyptic wasteland. And they're using advertisement to kind of entice these people to say, hey, even though you're in a apocalyptic wasteland, and even though it's a nuclear winter outside, you're perfectly safe and secure in this little bunker. I mean, it's this weird advertisement thing. It's like, would you really want to live in a bunker? I understand that you may need to, but do you want to? Is that the situation to which you want to find yourself? And is that a good scenario and a good outcome? I got to be honest. I would rather not exist at that point. I don't live in a fucking hellish environment like that. I would rather not be. I would rather not be. Hillary 2020. Oh God, don't say that. Don't say that. Fred Edwards, I am one of the 13th trolls. I am one of the hashtag 13 trolls. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. That is a trip. All right, guys. I am going to end this here. Guys, I appreciate you guys showing up for this. Yeah, I'm going to end it here. I'm going to appreciate you guys showing up. We had a pretty decent crowd today, so that's pretty badass. I am probably going to be over the weekend. I noted before I close, I don't know necessarily how many people are going to be here to close, but there are going to be a few people who are coming up. So Cynthia McKinney, I spoke with her, asking her to come onto the show. She's agreed to come onto the show. I'm not exactly sure of the date, but she will be here. That should be fucking interesting as all hell. That woman is a firebrand, so that should be pretty good. And Caitlin Johnston, she's agreed to come on for 30 minutes. It's probably going to be next week sometime, so that is also going to be a fucking amazing thing. I love her writing. I think it was maybe early part of last year where I was introduced to Caitlin Johnston. People kept bringing her up over and over and over and over again. And at some point, it was like, okay, let me just read one of the articles. I mean, people keep bringing her up. Let me check her out. And what I noticed, she had this kind of punchy writing style. It's this I'm going to call this exactly what this is without hedging on this particular point. So just because this person is wearing a suit, I'm not going to not call that person a murderer. If that person is making decisions in office and those decisions are getting people killed, then I'm going to call that person who's wearing that suit a murderer. And I'm not going to have any hedge about doing so. She has this style where she, some people may call her a bomb thrower. It's a decent style of writing. I like it. Somebody asked her, I don't remember where I read this, why she writes in this way. And she was making this point that, you need to be able to call things what they are. And if everything is just kind of obfuscated and filtered and everything else, I'm paraphrasing, then you're kind of missing the point. Call it what it is. Name it. And not necessarily be, this kind of coward behind certain things. Name it. Call it what it is. Don't be scared to do it. And so I like her writing. I've done multiple videos on some of her stuff. So that should be a damn good interview also. I guess conversation interview. She has a book out. And so that's one of the reasons she's coming on to the show. So we're going to be able to talk about the book in addition to American politics. And there's somebody else. Stephen Bassett is supposed to be coming on. He's a UFO lobbyist, so that should be fucking fascinating. Bassett is a really good speaker. And Joseph Burks. Now, I spoke to Joseph Burke last week, and I didn't get back to him fast enough, and that's my fault. Hopefully, he will come on either next week or week after next. His experiences are with Stephen Greer. It blows the doors off. It blows the doors off. Like it's one thing. If you and I are talking and I say, I read this book that said XYZ. Now, the book may be true, the book may be false, and at the end of the day, the person who said they read the book has no direct experience with that particular thing. The only thing they can do is just read the book. It's another thing when I, as the individual, is saying, I was here, I was with this particular person, we were doing this particular thing, and this happened. He's not sensationalist, he's not hyperbolic, none of that stuff. The guy was a medical doctor. And his experiences are amazing, and he comes to some interesting conclusions that go beyond this idea of like kicking the tires. It's more like a Jack Vallée perspective of the phenomena as opposed to just this thing of ships and craft and people in the ships and stuff like that. He's a fascinating guy. I've had the opportunity to listen to a lot of his lectures, and a lot. 3, I think. But all I saw was 3. I don't think there was more than 3. It's fucking fascinating. Fucking fascinating. So I am going to leave that here. People are saying that they're being jamaled because I tend to be a slow ender when I started dragging my feet and ending the show. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to end the show. So guys, I thank all of you for showing up. If you guys enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. And for everybody else that did support, Troy O'Fallon, Bill O'Reilly, Barbara Mercer, Grinning Libertarian, and Jim Hayden, guys, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm still somewhat shocked that people watch and then that people contribute, but by the same token, it is a lot of work, and I do appreciate I guess the support.